Some of the southern gentleman farmers had a sit down with my father-in-law and told him, "You don't eat with them, and you don't let them into your house." These were also the same people who became volunteer firefighters. I do want to comment to everything, but I can't. It's too much. And I was like, you know what? The best way would be just to come online, just to do a video where I'm actually doing like video comments, almost like a TikTok, so that I can actually like connect with you guys and that you can actually see that there's a person behind the video. Another comment from the firefighter here. So this is from at HD Warrior 8830. Okay. And she writes, "I was a volunteer firefighter in Georgia in the late 80s, early 90s, along with my husband. We lived in a largely rural county, and when the radio went off, hubby, who was captain, went straight to the scene with his vehicle to make sure to get anybody out who needed it. And then I would arrive shortly after with a fire truck. We knew people on that fire department who would hear certain addresses or parts of the county and slow walk. We lived in an area where people lived in old slave cabins, and they pretty much were wrapped in tar paper and were literal death traps, all right? Or a trailer that would have been through so many owners it was crazy. They wouldn't have a floor or ceilings. They lived in deplorable conditions. The only ones who got there to try and get these folks out were a woman they didn't want on the team anyways, and a damn Yankee who clearly didn't know how things were supposed to work according to them. Hubby had a dairy farm and would hire black day labourers. When lunchtime came, if there were only a couple, we had them sit in the house and eat at the table with us. If there are a lot of them, we would get the bench outside, and we had a bench and a table outside, and would sit and eat with them there. Some of the southern gentlemen, air quotes, some of the southern gentleman farmers had a sit down with my father-in-law and told him, "You don't eat with them, and you don't let them into your house." These were also the same people who became volunteer firefighters. We're getting a bit of an insight there, aren't we? Hubby knew of the roads and most of the people who lived in the rundown places. Most of them had worked for him or were former classmates of ours, and he was a hero when he managed to crawl into a fully involved trailer with plastic siding and got the man's grandma out, falling through the floor of the trailer in the process. Bystanders helped him out before the whole thing fell in on him, while I tended grandma and prayed hubby would be okay. I have to say that the bigots wouldn't have been so brazen as to sit there listening to dying folk. They simply showed up way beyond the time where it was possible to do anything for anybody. That's awful. So yeah, they simply showed up way beyond the time anybody could even be helped. Either way, it's evil and it was all too real. Please, please don't think everybody hates you and wishes you harm. The old guard dogs are dying out, and hopefully we can build a future from the ashes that will bring us all together under Christ the King. Now, whether anybody here is religious or not, I actually thank you for leaving that comment. I mean, I'm certainly not somebody who thinks that everybody's evil. I judge people on an individual basis. But, you know, pattern prevails, obviously. But I am somebody who is, like, open-hearted to change and things like that. So let's move on to another comment, and thank you very much for leaving that comment. Hey, back to a harrowing story. Don't worry, it's not traumatic, but you know, somebody's experience, and this is thanks to at a new creature 2700, okay, or 2700. I'm making it sound like Terminator. I was a white RM who actually saw this sadly in 3 separate places. Let me see, can you see me properly? I feel like I'm completely... That's better. Much better. So she saw this in 3 separate places, all right. And she said, it's so sad. I was not and refused to be a part of it. All right. As a Christian, I love everybody regardless of skin colour. The first one was a little old black woman in a nursing home. I called her doctor to ask for an order of just simple over-the-counter iron for her overwhelming anemia. This doctor in 1993 told me, "She's a N-word, isn't she?" I don't say that on this channel. Well, I started giving her iron tablets with vitamin C, which was stocked in the medical house. Thank you for doing that, all right? Wow, it's wild. The second one was a young, handsome black man in a hospital who had sickle cell anemia. I was told by him that I was the only white nurse who gave him Demerol for his pain. I looked over his chart and the other nurses were documenting that he was denying pain, which he wasn't, according to him, clearly. Right. The last one is the one that actually got me fired from the facility because I worked at nights from 11 to 7 in the morning and I was the only RN on our geriatric ward. Our building was built with a slope behind it toward the back and we were having torrential rain at the time. I recall hearing a resident screaming. This wasn't any ordinary scream, it was blood-curdling. I was making rounds with the nurse aides when I heard it. I asked them to go check on who was screaming and they responded, "Oh, it's just so-and-so." She gave this woman a shower and called her doctor again, asking if she should go to the hospital. He sleepily replied for me to call her family. No one answered at the family's residence, so I checked her chart and noticed that she was documented as no hospitalisation. Furious, I placed the lady back in... Hang on, there's a page missing here. Okay, that's annoying. Apologies. There's a page missing here when I took the thing. So basically, let me just say, so the woman that was screaming, it turned out that there were like fire ants had gone in, it got into her room and had got onto her, and that's why she was screaming. All right, so this is where we carried on about the woman who gave her a shower, etc. So I'll carry on from there. So I checked her chart and noticed that she was documented as no hospitalisation. Furious, I placed the lady back into the other room and with the empty bed, I charted all of this. The next day, there she was back in the bad room. So I called my supervisor and she didn't answer her phone. I brought the resident out to the nurse's station before the ants could attack her this last night that I worked, because I was about to be off for the next few days. Well, on the morning I was about to go to work that night, I received a phone call from the director of nursing that they wanted a meeting with me. Okay, I left and went in. The Don fired me right there. And get this, there was nobody else in the room, just us. And she told me I had no right to move a patient to another room. I told her the reason was fire, the fire ants, and it was in all of my nursing notes. She showed me the patient's chart, pulled out all my pages about the incident, and shredded them right in front of me. That is illegal, as nurses' notes are legal documents. I left there and went to work for a music company. The last I heard, that place is no more, which is my only solace. So yes, it does still happen in our modern times, and that is wild. So they really were going to let this poor old lady be basically eaten alive by fire ants. Like, I don't even know what the motivation is with this. Racial, just general incompetence. I never understand why people that do these sort of customer facing jobs or sort of care work, sometimes where you get people that absolutely have no care or empathy in their hearts. And I think that some people, obviously get into those jobs because those are the only jobs that they could get. But I also, part of me, think that there are some people that enter into these sorts of caring professions because they are predators, energy vampires of sorts. They like to be in control and to hurt people because there's no other way. Oh my God. Okay, we're back with the crazy things. At Donatella Liesio, I worked at the local hospital. I saw a nurse literally kill this man. I don't even know. I was on the other side of the curtain, making the bed for another patient coming in. She walked out and said, "Oh well, his family wasn't going to get here in time, and it was a white nurse and a white patient, so it wasn't a racial thing." But what the hell? The family was trying to get in to see him for their last visit, and she pulled the plug. Huh? I ran down the hallway and couldn't believe when I had just thought in my head, was that real or not? Okay, for the longest time, there are evil people out there and they come in white suits. They come in blue collars, and they even come with fire hats. That is absolutely wild. This is what I mean. I'm like, what on earth? There are people that take these jobs to be a predator. Now, I wasn't aware that you could actually just pull the plugs a nurse. Like, do they even have the power to do that? I know it says it's illegal, but I'm pretty sure that that's not the procedure. What happened? What happened afterwards? Like, if you see this girl, like, what happened? This is crazy. Okay, we have another one here at Drobib. I had many deathbed confessions working at the nursing home. One that stood out there was a Holocaust survivor that told me her whole experience and how her family threw her in the home, said that she was crazy and took all her money. She said she was directed to write the Bible correctly, so they deemed her unfit. I mean, well, with that last line, but still, by the stingy Danat child said, my wife does registration at the hospital, and she told me the other day, a black man came in. He came in still alive, but he started coding, and the white doctors and nurses were playing the song Highway to Hell and dancing to it. He eventually died. The song was still playing, and the nurse was still dancing, while going to the mother to tell her that her son didn't make it. The nurse got rude with the mother as well when the mother asked the nurse, can they still try to bring him back? Like, what in the world is this? This is Highway to Hell. Highway to Hell. Come. I am so sorry. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for your wife. You had to see that because that's traumatic. And what on earth? Like, oh my God. Okie dokie at Sumem says, I'm a nurse, and yes, they beg for forgiveness. Those spirits visit them at night and give them hell. I was a night shift nurse for a long time. They get no rest. Okay, I'm on break for a while, and the nursing homes and hospitals are haunted as hell with unrested spirits. They don't bother me. I see them, hear them. If you are attentive, you can too. Guys, I believe, I know. I'm like, just keep dropping the stories below. It's absolutely fascinating. Tony Freaky said, I think it's Fricky, not Freaky. He said, was it because Mr. Johnson didn't address what they did to Tommy and the baby as wrong because he didn't partake in either's demise, just asking? Thanks. I think that it could be the fact that he kept it silent, that he knew that the baby was murdered, the man was murdered, and he said nothing, and that ate away at him. Or, what I also think, when I'm really thinking about it, I think perhaps that he maybe was involved himself. He, even in his panic, he still was sort of protecting himself in terms of trying to make it look as if he didn't do anything that was offhand as much. He didn't have a hand in the killing. He just knew. I think he was more involved than he said, and he probably was there and witnessed it, which is adding to that. That's my personal thing. But just the being and standing by, it's like when they say, you know, if you're a witness to a crime and you just stand by and watch it happen, are you not as guilty of the crime itself? Like, well, you were there. What were your actions? So there is that. So maybe he was just there, but ugh. This is the history they don't want people to know. That's why they keep banning it in schools. God forbid these clear kids, I'm so sorry, finds out who Mimo and Papa really are. Oh my God. Do you know what it reminds me? Like when what do you guys get taught in the US then when it comes to these sorts of stories and slavery and all of that? Like, what sort of things are you taught and what are you not taught? I remember in school we did a year, I think it was in year 9 when we did slavery, and we didn't do it for so long, but like I remember we had to touch upon, you know, it was the tough part. So we watched Mississippi Burning. We had to watch Mississippi Burning in class, and oh my God, I remember that day. I'm a crier when I watch things like that, and as most people were in the class, and it was like, I'm saying hilarious, but it's not like ha funny, but it's like, you know, we're all in the class. I went to a school that was 50-50 in terms of like black kids, white kids. We're all like la, all friends, like that sort of stuff, you know, everybody's fine until the movie came on. By the end of the movie, because we had to watch it in bits, each time the end of the movie, at the end of the class, it felt like there was division in a way in the class, because all the black kids we're all kind of traumatized and like crying or feeling very shaken up, and all the white kids just looked very awkward, guilty, and it was just awkward. But after a while we all just got back on with each other. But it's like, those are the parts that I remember, and so I can understand why people say, make it difficult for people to heal, for one. And for two, you've got people out there who don't even want to acknowledge certain things happened, like in these stories, until the last minute. It's really difficult if somebody's voice or whole way of being has been suppressed. It's difficult to sometimes get over and move to a better place. So I can understand that, but I remember us watching that in school. I remember doing Mississippi Burning and stuff. So I'm curious, like, what do they teach you in the US then when it comes to slavery and stuff? Is it in your is it in the curriculum, or is it not? Like, I really would like to know, genuinely.